The Tom Woods Show, episode 1955.
Prepare to set fire to the index card of allowable opinion. Your daily dose of liberty education starts here. The Tom Woods Show.
Hey everybody, improve your life with the official coffee of the Tom Woods Show, Press House Coffee. Try a couple of their amazing varieties and you'll see why old Woods, who never drank coffee before, now loves it. Take 20% off your first order with code WOODS at presshousecoffee.com. Hey everybody, Tom Woods here. Anthony Welti is back with us again. Now, Anthony has run for office with the Libertarian Party in the past, and he's had great success with fundraising and with votes, and frankly, with getting the message out to a lot of people. So now he's doing that more or less full time, and I want to check in with him on what he's up to, because I think he's very effective, and he's really, really solid and smart. So Anthony, welcome back.
Hey, Tom. Good to talk to you, my friend.
You've been up to quite a lot since the last time you were on the show, and you're doing an awful lot of things. And before we dive into those, to help people get to know you once again, why don't we start with one of my favorite questions to a guest, which is, there are some people who are born libertarians. That's true. They've just got this instinct. Where they haven't read all the books yet, but they already know where they are. I want to know, is that you? And if not, how did you get here?
No, I was born into libertarianism because I might be a little better positioned now than I otherwise would be. No, I came in because of Obama. Obama made me libertarian. It started with his lies about protecting whistleblowers like Snowden and Assange. And as an ex-Democrat, that was important to me. And, coming up here on 9/11 and with the stuff going on in the Middle East, I was an anti-war Democrat. And, by the time I actually woke up and started paying attention to politics and realizing it was all a big charade at the federal level, I started looking elsewhere. And at the local level, I started getting annoyed with stupid little things like parking my car on a public street and getting a ticket for not having the right sticker on my license plate. I come in through the real world libertarian stuff where I just got pissed off at government over and over and over again. And I decided to actually do something about it. And, now this is what I focus my life on, is trying to create liberty for myself, for my family, and to inspire others to want liberty for themselves and for their neighbors.
Well, that is not a bad way to live, is it? All right. So now let's talk about some of the ways you're doing that. I know that you're making your way across the country here and there, and you started in Washington State.
Yeah, my family's based out of Washington State. That's where we technically live, but we're on a pretty epic journey. We've been living full time on the road for coming up on 2 years now. Most of that was while I was running for office in Washington, and we traveled the entire state, literally corner to corner for a year solid, doing outreach and just talking about peaceful free market solutions to things for insurance and healthcare. But now post campaign, I'm wanting to share my experiences and, help teach people, what I did that was successful and helped me fundraise and helped me get a lot of votes and, help me earn respect in the communities for our ideas. And then, in turn, inspire people to join the liberty movement. So we're traveling from Washington all the way to Florida, sharing that story. But now during these lockdowns and, the vaccine passports and stuff, a huge focus of my family's efforts is just being loud and pushing back against these mandates from Washington all the way to Florida and everywhere in between, to really just stand up for medical freedom. So we're attending rallies all over the country. We're helping host medical freedom rallies. We've got one coming up here in Washington in 2 weeks. And really, it's just trying to make sure that the liberty movement pushes back as hard as humanly possible against what's going on these last 18 months.
Yeah. And, I get, this is going to sound silly, but I actually get a decent amount of my news from Twitter. And that might sound silly, but I follow a lot of people who really curate the news very well for me. And they always find interesting items. But over the past 36 hours, I would say, we're recording this a couple days before it goes out. So let's say over the past several days, as I look on Twitter, it's almost all about Afghanistan. Now, I don't in any way deny the importance of what has been happening in Afghanistan. I'm concerned about the welfare of everybody. And I had Scott Horton on my show to talk about Afghanistan. But at this moment, this is the very week that the vaccine passport policy is being rolled out. It's going to be enforced starting September 13th, but they're rolling it out this week in New York. And that's been almost completely buried by the Afghanistan news. And I'd like to, it's kind of America firsty, but I would like to talk about what's happening with the loss of freedom in America this moment, this very week, right here, right in our own backyards. And I agree. I think this is the issue of my entire life. And I've lived through some pretty rotten experiences here. I lived through the financial crisis and the war on terror and whatever, but the total transformation of the society that I'm living in, such that my kids will never get to see the country that I grew up in, is terrifying to me.
It's terrifying and it's heartbreaking, really. And
heartbreaking is another word. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, and let's use their cliche. It's about the kids, right? But no BS. It truly is. For folks like you and I, because we see the pain and suffering that's being put on them. The forced mask wearing. I've watched kids break down crying in department stores as their parents are forcing them to try on masks. And they're like, well, you have to do it. There's no way around it. And I'm like, yes, there is. Remove yourself from the system and stop giving them an ounce of power and control over your life. But part of what we're doing is not trying to preach at people about that, but rather to inspire people and to be courageous and to be bold, because people feel trapped in a lot of ways. So, as we're traveling, I'm talking a lot about how my wife and my son and I have removed ourselves from these systems, and we live, full-time on the road doing road schooling and homeschooling, and really putting ourselves in a position to where no matter what the government does, I'm still going to have, more freedom by taking this route. And that doesn't mean that everybody has to do that, but just to be bold to start looking outside the box, because if we don't do that, we're going to continue to be trapped and trapped and trapped. But to your point about, Afghanistan and then the stuff going on here, I am a big one of the idea that you've got to remove the plank out of your own eye before you can remove it out of somebody else's. And that's not America first. That's, individual first and foremost. It starts with me, right? I can't worry about what everybody else is doing if I don't have my own home in order, right? And then that extrapolates out to the country, right? If we are not doing things correctly in America, who is it for us to say, what other countries should be doing and what wars they should be engaging in or not engaging in? And we have to allow them the opportunity to figure that out for themselves, just like we had that opportunity. And it's led to, a great amount of peace and prosperity here in America up to this point. And now they're trying to steal it from us. So it's really a tragic situation where we need folks to be inspired to fight back because they're fearful. And then there's a lot of culpability there as well, the people that willfully want this to happen. And it's not okay. And we have to tell them it's not okay, because if we do, we're just allowing history to continuously repeat itself. And at some point, that cycle has to stop.
Well, it is heartbreaking for me in particular because, I went to graduate school in New York. And I am well aware of all the problems with New York, and the politicians are terrible. I had no idea they would get quite this terrible. But there's more to a place than the politicians. There are aspects of New York culturally and in terms of culinary delights and so many other things, and just the energy of the place. And that's just been sucked away. Michael Malice just tweeted out today an image of de Blasio talking about what the new policy is. And Malice said, 2 weeks until I'm out of basically something like this dead city, this corpse of a city, I think he put it. And just to see that happen.
Isn't he moving to like Austin? Yeah,
he's moving to Austin, I think. Yeah, I think he's moving there. And it's just that, because to me, maybe it's just hitting me harder than other people, because for my own personal reasons, that city has meant so much to me over the years. And now to feel like I'm completely shut out of it is really, really disorienting for me. And that's maybe a feeling that not everybody has. But I think once the FDA gives the official approval to the vaccines, then who knows what kind of floodgates will open in terms of these different restrictions. On the other hand, Anthony, what I'm also reading, though, is that there are a lot more nurses refusing to take the vaccine than we've been led to believe. And that if they let them all go, it's going to be a serious crisis for them. So who knows how this head-to-head confrontation will wind up. Maybe the bad guys will blink.
Let's hope so. But, if we are not bold and loud and we've got to be in their face about this. The government, the people enacting these policies, the voters that want this, they are bullies and they must be treated as such. We must draw the line in the sand repeatedly and deeper and more firm and tell them, no, this is not okay. Because if we're meek at this time, they're going to continue to roll over us. And the nurses and the doctors that want to push back won't feel like they can because they don't have a support system to fall back on. So we do truly need to be in this together and all pushing back as hard as is absolutely possible. Because for me, this is extremely personal. I got active in the liberty movement because of medical freedom and, informed consent for things like vaccines. I first realized what it meant to have liberty for all when I felt for the first time in my life, my child being discriminated against, right? My family being discriminated against. And as a straight white male that had a pretty easy life, standard average upbringing, to feel what that pain was for the first time is what really helped me correlate how other people's pain and suffering matters as well, right? And that's why I fight so hard for all of your freedoms all the time. I've literally spoken at rallies, 2 different rallies in the same day, where I'll speak at a gun rally in the morning and then like a vape rally in the afternoon, because all of those issues matter. This issue matters. Everybody's freedom matters. And, the idea of people being fired from their jobs over a personal choice because the government says you can't work if you don't do this.
And some of these people have been at these jobs for 30 years. And just like that, they're just kicked to the curb, like that.
How are they supposed to retire? How are they supposed to care for their families? We're seeing, clips on the news where they're already suggesting that these people aren't going to get unemployment benefits because they're being, legitimately let go for violating a work requirement, right? So if we don't band together and push back hard on this, we are going to continue to see this erosion happen. And I, for one, don't know necessarily what's going to happen through all this, but I damn well know I'm not going to take it sitting down.
Yeah.
And this is a hill that I'm willing to die on. It's not about me. It's about my kids and his generation, and all those cliches. But I take this deadly serious. And that's why I'm doing this full time as an activist now. I would rather be spending 100% of my time, building a homestead and starting a jiu-jitsu practice. I love teaching and coaching jiu-jitsu. But right now, most of my energy, my human production, goes directly to fighting the state. And that's unfortunate because I shouldn't have to do this, but I refuse to just take it laying down. So, my wife and I, my family, we're putting all of our heart and soul and energy into, fighting for human liberty.
Well, that's very important and very impressive. Hey, everybody, let's take a minute to thank our sponsor, the official coffee of the Tom Woods Show, Press House Coffee. This is the coffee that converted a middle-aged man, that's me, by the way, who never really drank coffee, into a coffee drinker. That is how delicious these coffees are. And they have something for everyone, from rich, chocolatey, and nutty dark roasts to fruity and vibrant light roasts. And with their all-new Daily Grind, Press House Coffee is both fresh and convenient. Daily Grind is 2 weeks' worth of Press House's most popular coffees, perfectly portioned, ground, and sealed at peak freshness, no matter how you like to brew or how much you like to brew at a time. Rip it, dump it, brew it, that's it. No guesswork, measuring, or noisy grinders necessary. It's time to ditch the K-Cup for a way better cup. Go to PressHouseCoffee.com and click Daily Grind to change the way you coffee for good. And use promo code WOODS at checkout for 20% off your first order. That's PressHouseCoffee.com. Let me ask you a couple of logistical questions. How are you getting across the country and how are you supporting yourself, if that's not too personal?
No, it's quite a unique project. So we're living in essentially a travel trailer tiny house that we got for the campaign, and we moved into it 2 years ago, and now we're just hauling it cross country. So we're in Washington right now. Pretty soon we head to Idaho and then Montana and so on and so forth, and we'll end up in Florida. But it's a 28-foot travel trailer. We homeschool my kid in it. My wife works remote. And then I do a lot of the activism, of course, on the phone and, networking and working on the computers. And then we show up in town and we're hosting events. And one of the funnest parts about this is instead of starting, maybe a traditional like Republican-esque or Democrat-esque, consulting candidate, manager business, we're taking a different approach to it. I'm taking a true volunteerist type heart to the situation. First off, we did not get a business license. I did not start a business for this. I am simply volunteering my time to anybody that wants help or wants to work on a project together that is fighting for liberty, right? And I'm focusing most of that energy on candidates and just helping them be more effective at spreading their message. But we do it all for free for them. So I'm not licensed. And then for money, we crowdsource. We take donations. I did not start a nonprofit. I didn't want to invite the government into my financial life. I didn't want their judgment on what is or is not, profit, driven. So we didn't, we're not doing any W-9s or W-2s. We're not reporting income tax, and every dime that gets donated goes down as a gift. For the libertarians listening in on this, some of you have heard of the libertarian tip card, where you can tip in cash and then the waitstaff don't have to report it on their tax forms if it's a gift. We're taking that same mentality and applying it to a little bit of a business mindset here, to where we can take in money legally without having to report it to taxes. And also legally, because I'm volunteering, I don't technically need a business license. So we're using the system to our advantage here, and specifically working with the goal of keeping the state out of my life in any way possible.
Well, again, this is music to people's ears. I think we have somebody like you with a lot of experience going around and doing stuff like this. But in the meantime, you have children?
Yeah, I've got a son that just turned 6 a few weeks ago. He actually lost his tooth about half an hour before I was getting ready for this call. His first tooth today. And he's so proud because he's turning from a little boy into a big boy, and it was really it was a great moment for our family this morning. Losing the first tooth.
How sweet!
Yeah,
that is great.
Yeah, he's a great kid. He loves Tuttle Twins and reading about Ethan and Emily, and we're teaching him about self-ownership and property rights and volunteerism and stuff. And he's 6, but he's picking it up, and he's got such a kind heart for people. And, he's never worn a mask. I've never once put a mask on his face. He's old enough now to where, and intelligent enough, he can actually kind of decide for himself. I try very hard not to radicalize him, but to tell him the truth and give him his options. And, he doesn't want to put a mask on, so he doesn't put one on.
Well, that is kind of a question that parents have to ask when they have views that are, shall we say, out of the mainstream, is, am I going to impose these on the kids? Or am I going to propagandize them? And I don't think there's anything wrong with telling your kids where you stand on something, but I generally wait for them to ask me how I feel about something. And after a while, they can perceive the consistency. And if they already know where dad stands, they'll say, wait a minute, I bet you think such and such. And you're putting it together. So that's kind of how I would do it. And then also as they get older, I sneak them copies of my books and stuff, and I figure they can read those and ask me questions, stuff like that. But I will say that after we saw this collapse of the regime in Afghanistan, I was having dinner with them the other night, and I just brought that up at dinner. And I told them that by some estimates, that was $2 trillion worth of money spent over 20 years. And if you calculate that out, when I first saw this, I thought this must be a mistake. I must have done this wrong. It's not wrong. That comes out to $273 million a day for 20 years. And in a week, it's blown away into nothingness. And that's how I put it to them. And they were just flabbergasted. So I mean, like, again, there's nothing wrong. You want to show them the Tuttle Twins or whatever. But I don't want to overdo it, because I don't want them ever to think that they have to think the way I do to be a member of the family. I want to make sure they understand they're free to come to their own conclusions, but that sometimes it's fun to debate and discuss things together. I just want to make sure they understand there's no pressure involved.
I mean, being a parent's a hard thing, man. I am anti-parent war, because, mommy wars and stuff, because parenting is hard and there's no one right way to do it. It's, you just hope that people have the right heart for their kids and they care enough to put in the extra effort. That's all I really ask out of parents. Just give a crap and try your hardest. I try to not go too over the top. Plus he's only 6, right? So I got to be a little sensitive to emotions and what's reasonable to even be talking about. But being a dad's a blessing. It's my absolute favorite thing. It's why I'm doing this. And we're actually going to give him, for his tooth, we get into all the magical stuff for, Santa and Easter Bunny and, Tooth Fairy. So he's going to get the Tooth Fairy tonight. And instead of giving him cash, I hear people getting $5, $20 nowadays for their kids. My kid's going to get a piece of silver under his pillow tonight. And we're going to start talking about metals and precious metals and gems and, different kinds of currency. A couple of years ago, I considered opening him a bank account, like a savings account, because that's, kind of a rite of passage, right? In a sense. And I was like, wait a second. Why am I going to, interject him into this, corporate, disgusting, federal banking system? And we neglected to. I was like, we're not going to open him a bank account. If he needs one someday, he can do it. And then the other day when his tooth got loose, we started thinking about it. And I was like, why do I want to, keep forcing this money system on him that by the time he's old enough to be working and creating an income for himself, things might be changed by then anyways. So we're going to start teaching him about gold and silver, and he's going to get a little, $20, $30 piece of silver, like a little, I can't even remember how big it is. This is just a little tiny chunk I got.
Right. But as he gets older and the, that silver coin or whatever silver you have commands a little bit more dough than it did before, he'll say, doggone it, I knew I trusted my dad, but now it's like double. when he sees it really happening, with his own eyes, that my dad said this would happen, and the guy can predict the future. Here it is happening. Tell us about this website project that you have.
Yeah. So, so many people are getting kicked off of, Twitter and Facebook and stuff. I'm actually on a 24-hour ban right now myself for something mean I said. So anyways, we're starting a website called the roadtoliberty.com. It's a little bit of a personal website where I'm going to be doing a bunch of blogging and, taking some of my social media messaging and just refining it onto my own platform. But the bigger thing behind that I really hope the website gets used for is we're creating forums on there for conversation. It's not going to look and feel like Facebook or Twitter. That's not the intention. But it's an opportunity for like-minded people, libertarians, liberty lovers, free market people, agorists, anarchists, and everybody in between to come together and just have a forum to share ideas and conversation and network. I'm putting a bulk of the energy into specifically Libertarian Party stuff, not the inner party stuff that everybody argues about, but specifically the work. Our candidates don't have the resources they need to be successful. You hear many of reasons why libertarians can't win, and I agree with almost all of them. So instead of, whining and complaining about reasons why libertarians can't win, I'm trying to attack a couple of those things and turn these negatives into a positive so we can get some bigger market share. So the website is going to be just a resource for all of us to come together, share our ideas, our skills, our resources, the different things that we have. So candidates can come together and ask questions of other candidates, like, who built your website, or where did you order your signs from, or who did you use to help you buy ads, right? And things of that nature. And then it'll be a spot for volunteers to come in and say, hey, I'm good at this, or I'd love to help phone bank, or, things of that nature. So really just bringing us all together on the road to liberty, just to help give us one more resource to build this movement, to find different paths to create liberty for our communities. And my hope is that it'll help change lives and take a little stress off our activists so that they have more resources and they don't feel so alone sometimes.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? Before you got started doing what you're doing now, you talked about your insurance commissioner run. You were working with Spike Cohen?
Yeah, I had the pleasure of nominating Spike at the convention last year for his VP spot. I was just thoroughly impressed with how he communicated and his desire for, absolute liberty for all. So we nominated him. And then after my campaign was over, he brought me on as his tour manager. So I went cross country with him twice, actually, last summer on the bus tour. So we helped host probably 50, 60 events, somewhere in that range, all across the country, literally just getting him from one spot to the next, making sure the events are, running smoothly, that everybody's where they're supposed to be, that, literally just manning the bus all across the country. It was an incredible experience to get to see him work. And for any, libertarian out there that maybe, only sees one aspect of Spike on social media or whatever, getting to watch him work on a day-to-day basis as somebody that's, essentially an anarchist myself here, I was thoroughly impressed with how he conducted himself, and it was incredible. It was great for me, though, because it was just so encouraging to see people all over the country that were fighting, that wanted to fight. And many of them are new. And, as somebody that helped start a county chapter in my home state, one of the main things that I've ever come across here as a party activist is people just don't know how to get involved, or they don't know where to start, right? They're pissed off. They're upset about something the government's doing, and they care and they want to do something, but they don't know what. They don't know how. They don't know where to start. They don't know what a city council meeting is, or how to, look up on a legislative, document. And as we travel, is just helping those new activists, those people that Dave Smith is bringing in, that you're bringing into the party, helping all of these newer activists get out there to kick ass and take names. So, getting to travel with Spike was wonderful to see people that want to do that. And it's really kind of helped propel me in leaving Washington and being bold enough to go out and to take my tour across country and to really just help people from one corner of the country to the next.
Is there a way people can find out where you're going to be when? I mean, obviously it's difficult to time when you're going to get to Florida as compared to, when you're in Washington State, but maybe people want to meet up with you. Is there any way you can arrange that?
Yeah. So on the website, whether you're a candidate that wants my help or you're a county affiliate that's looking for a speaker or, whatever, there's a contact me spot to essentially, book me. And then there's a list of upcoming events. There's also a map on the first splash page, kind of showing the route that we're taking all the way across country. And I should be down in Florida by about November 6th. I was just on a phone call with the chair of one of the counties over in Jacksonville, Florida, booking a candidate training session with his group. And we're going to be down there early November. So between now and then, we've got probably about, I think, 10 or 12 events that are already booked and should be published here over the next week or two.
Okay. Tell us the website one more time.
Yeah, theroadtoliberty.com. It's a space to follow the tour, to get connected to other activists, to gift to this effort, to essentially, help sponsor the liberty movement. You can sponsor me through there, where I get to go around and candidates and we don't have to take any money from them. That way they can spend their money on, activism and signs and flyers and business cards and all that kind of stuff that they're supposed to be doing.
All right. Excellent. So I'll have that link up at tomwoods.com/1955. And I hope when you do finally make it down to Florida, our paths will cross and, I'm sure you'll have a whole bunch of stories of experiences and things you had, but I'm hopeful that when you're in Florida, there won't be all that much that you have to, at least COVID-wise, push back against. DeSantis has pretty good instincts on this, but at the same time, nobody's perfect, so we're all trying to make sure he stays on the right path. But I'm lucky that 5 years ago, almost at random, I moved here because, as you say, our children are very important in the decisions we make. And I'm glad mine haven't been sitting indoors all this time and having everything they love canceled and all that. They've been able to live. And I can't put a price tag on that.
I'm so lucky that we are moving everywhere because otherwise we might have been stuck in Washington, outside of Seattle. Yeah. And so I'm so grateful that I had the foresight and, had people come into my life that were, woke me up in time to see the writing on the wall. I started preparing my family for this, about 7 years ago. And right when COVID hit was, kind of like 6 months after I was, really prepared to adjust to anything the government threw at me. So that's a blessing that I was in that position.
Yeah, it is. And of course, 7 years ago, a lot of people would have said, what are you talking about? I mean, yeah, we have some problems, but nothing catastrophic. Well, you never know because catastrophic things don't really announce themselves 7 years in advance. You got to be ready for them.
They've been pushing these lockdowns and mandates and stuff for years. They've been, slowly, interjecting it into state and local governments through the public health departments and the CDC. I mean, they were changing rules in the CDC a couple of years ago to essentially open FEMA camps for unvaccinated people. So I've seen the writing on the wall for years. I helped start a group called Informed Choice Washington, a nonprofit out in Washington State for medical freedom. And that was before my time as a libertarian activist. And I eventually decided that, instead of working from the lobby end and begging for freedom here, I decided to get involved politically and help people get elected that we don't have to beg for freedom for, and now 6-7 years later, it's come full circle. And guess what? We're still back here fighting for medical freedom. So I'm not going anywhere. This is a fight that affects my family personally. I have thousands of friends that are being affected by this and millions more across the country and billions probably across the world by the time it's all said and done, that this is going to affect and marginalize and harm their life, their mental health, their financial well-being. And I'm not okay with it. So we're going to keep pushing back. And after we get to Florida and the tour's done, we're going to pivot, almost 100% of our energy into just teaching candidates how to be more effective. That way, they're relevant in their races, right? It's very easy for libertarians to get 2% in a campaign and to get no media attention. And, they might win over a couple of new voters and, share a few ideas, which is great. But I don't want these incremental wins. I'm looking for exponential growth because without it, we're destined to have probably a violent future. And I don't want to see people die in war. So we're going to push as hard as we can, teach as many people to spread the message as far as possible and bring in the people that think like us already and start convincing people that don't think like us to consider us. And I was able to do that in Washington because I built a lot of trust in the state. I was consistent for years on my messaging. So by the time my election came around, people that wouldn't otherwise consider libertarian ideas or free market ideas were, eating these ideas out of the palm of my hand. In 2016, the person that ran for my position got 100,000 votes. I hit 325,000 one cycle later. And, that's, roughly 250,000 first-time libertarian voters. And that's just a lot of time and hard work and energy. And it's not enough to win. Ultimately, I got my butt kicked. But we took 40% of the Republican base in one election cycle just by being bold and consistent. And now the people that were following me for years are still following me through this COVID. And instead of being like, well, maybe we still need medical licenses, but we should be able to buy insurance across state lines. Now they're like, we should abolish medical licensing and the CDC because they're finally waking up, right? They turned from first-time libertarian voters to now that they're actually wanting complete unabashed liberty. And it's because I've shown them for years now, everything that the government is doing is causing pain and suffering. And it's not you and I and them that are doing it. And if we just get government to stop and remove their levers of power, we can live a more peaceful life.
Well, check out the website, everybody, theroadtoliberty.com, and find out what Anthony Welti's up to, what your role in all this can be. And as I say, I'll link to that at tomwoods.com/1955. And continued success and good luck to you, Anthony. Thanks so much.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm just here to help. I don't know everything. Hell, I don't know some of the things, a lot of the things. So I just want to help this liberty movement. And thank you for what you do, Tom. I'm glad to hear you're feeling better. And I'm glad it didn't change your perspective on how you would have handled things.
No way, baby. No, it's going to take a little bit more than that to get old Woods to change his mind. Thanks again, Anthony. I'll see you soon.
All right, be free.
All right, everybody. As we wrap up for today, I've been mentioning in at least one of my newsletters just how upset I am about this whole vaccine passport thing. In New York City, of course, we know that it's taken root. It's supposed to be enforced starting September 13th, but it looks like vendors are tripping all over themselves to start enforcing it already. So I canceled a trip I was going to take there last week because why bother? I'm not doing it. I've already had COVID. There's no reason for me to be vaccinated. There's no way I'm doing that. It makes no sense, so I'm not doing it. And then we heard that the mayor of Boston was rejecting this kind of idea out of hand, saying that it smacked of the kind of papers that you would have to show after slavery, and that it would disproportionately hurt minority groups. Well, okay, I mean, those are certainly arguments. But then I found out that pretty much every opponent she has in the election for mayor, which is actually taking place this very year, November 2021, favors the vaccine passport system. So here I was thinking, well, at least I'll still have Boston, which is not far from where I grew up, and maybe I'm going to lose Boston too. It's unbelievable what we're observing. Now, on the other hand, Moscow introduced a plan like this, where to get into a restaurant, you had to show documentation of one kind or another. But within a month, they had reversed it because these businesses just couldn't survive under a system like this. And I just saw today, Nate Silver shared on Twitter some poll results showing that just about half of vaccinated people answered yes to the question of whether they are avoiding other people as much as possible. So under this vaccine passport system, then you are requiring businesses to cater exclusively to a group of people who are such hypochondriacs that half of them, after being vaccinated, are still avoiding as many people as possible. Those are your new customers. Good luck catering to them. So who knows? Who knows how long that can go on? We have a good, robust conversation going on about this inside my group, the Tom Woods Show Elite. This is a group with no censorship, no BS fact-checking or any of that. And I said to people, what are your white pill ideas here? Do we have reason to believe these things won't work or won't last that long? And so we have a good conversation going about that. If you're not a part of that group, but you're enjoying the Tom Woods Show, something's not right. Membership in the Tom Woods Show Elite is just one of the many benefits you get as a supporting listener of the Tom Woods Show. So check that out at supportinglisteners.com over the weekend. Join me in there, and I'll see you all next week.
Become a smarter libertarian in just 30 minutes a day. Visit TomWoods.com to subscribe to the show for free, and we'll see you next time.
Like the sound of the Tom Woods Show? My audio production is provided by Podsworth Media. Check them out at podsworth.com.